Okay, there we go. Yeah, look, new hair. I particularly like how I've appropriated my bald spot here nicely. Welcome to day number 4 or night number 4 of ANZ Coders, everyone. Say hi in the chat channel, and the sound effects coming through from the other end. Behave, behave. All right, so there I am. What am I doing? Okay, I'm introducing people. So tonight, for tonight's festivities, we've got David Gardiner doing 10 unusual, just like my headwear, unusual tips and tricks for .NET. Then we're going to get CMS, Sitefinity, so we're going to have Bishoy coming on for that, and then Kanye is coming back to do working distributed. So there are our 3 sessions for tonight. As per usual, feel free to jump into the chat channel. Don't be shy. Say hi. Ask questions in the Q&A area down the bottom. And that would be awesome. It is not Talk Like a Pirate Day, so don't wear a pirate hat. I am a bit like that though at times, but I'll just stay as the clown. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, and thank you also to our sponsors, Redify and Crowdcast, who are making sure this all happens, in particular Crowdcast. Redify is just along for the ride. And I'm going to hand over. So, David, over to you. I'm going to hide myself so you don't have my embarrassment here, and it's all yours.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Well, we thought we would hype it up a bit. And so tonight we got 10 unusual tricks and tips, or tips and tricks about what am I doing? .NET. So here's my opening slide. And just to make it a bit more fun, we'll try and make it a bit interesting tonight. But anyway, that's my slide. Demo. Okay, enough slides. Let's go over to Visual Studio. So 10 interesting and unusual things about .NET. Number 1 is reference aliases. So we have a program here, and we're referencing an interface, an iLog interface, which I've defined in this other class here. And the problem is that I'm also referencing another library, which also defines exactly the same type. And so the compiler can't figure out which one I mean. So the way we can get around this is to set up an alias on our assembly reference. So if I go in here, there's my reference, press F4, and this defaults to global, but I can type something else in there. I'm going to type in external, and you'll see actually now that actually in itself helps a bit, but if we see which one it's resolving, I just pressed F12, and actually that's the other assembly. I don't want that one. So how do I refer to this one? So what I do is this. I use the extern alias, external, and then indicate that actually when I see iLog, I want to use this one and not. And so now, if we do an F12, we'll see it actually resolves to here, and that one resolves to our library, which is the really useful one. So there you go. That is our first tip. And I've got a little sound effect here. There we go, just to make it fun. Okay, moving on. Second unusual tip or trick. I've got an application here. I will run it just to show you there's nothing up my sleeve. And actually it runs on the other screen. Let's bring it over there. There you go, it's a very exciting application. It prints the number 11. Okay, and so let's have a look at that. It's not doing too much. We're referencing another library, which has got a really useful class here called useful. It's doing a calculation. Now, this is a library that I'm shipping to other customers, and I decided I want to refactor that library, move this class into another library to make it a bit more sensible. So how can I do that but not annoy my customers by having to cause them to rebuild everything? Well, I can set up a type forward, and so I do that like this. I basically use the type forwarded to attribute, and it goes over here to my other library, which is where I'm going to move it to. I'll just enable that code there. Whoop. And so this is where I've moved it to. I just added an extra console.write line in here just to prove that it's going to be this class that's running. That's there. Now, the one thing I do need to do for the demo is unload this project. I'll show you why in a second, if I remember. Okay, so I now recompile that old library, and I can now ship that. So I've got, there's my old library. Ooh. Copy those, and I'm going to drop them into the bin folder. Press those and run the new client, and keeps popping on the one. And there you go. So we've run the same exe. We haven't rebuilt, but we've changed where that class is. And so that's exactly what Microsoft did when they refactored the .NET framework. They used type forwarding. Now, why did I have to unload the client? Because if it's all in the same solution and you try and build, you will get an error, because then it's able to say, actually, this has moved, so don't do that. So that's why I unloaded that project. Of course, this only makes sense when you're shipping that library to somebody else. Okay, that's second one done. Ding, ding. All right. Now, third one, indexes with parameters. So I've got a class here, and you might be familiar with the idea of having an indexing method using this and with a parameter. What you might not be so familiar with is the fact that you can have extra parameters on your indexing method. So that could be just so that you want to have some kind of multi-dimensional array that you want to index into, or it could be just a way of passing an extra value in to the method to do some extra functionality. So if I run this program, we will see that, sure enough, it's able to output some stuff, and it's able to run the key and do some extra things there. Okay, so something that might be useful if you're using that kind of feature. That's our next one done. Ding, ding. Okay, dynamic hashes is our next feature, our tool, our trick, our tip. Some of these you might have come across before. Some of them might be new to you, hopefully. Okay, so this is I've seen this in a few different places where you've got a class and you need to store a dictionary of things there. So you just create a backing field. You could have even done this as an auto property. And you've just got a values with a string key, string values. You could use this for JSON things, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of reasons why you might want to do this. But wouldn't it be nice if you could do this and be not so much more strongly typed, but propagate these keys as properties on your type? Well, we can if we extend the dynamic type. So I've got another type here called bag, which inherits from dynamic object. And so instead of referring to the values, what I want to be able to do is just set my properties with a value. You'll see that doesn't quite work yet, and that's because I've got var here. I need to change that to dynamic, and all of a sudden it's happy. And so now all I've done, let's have a look at the class down here. I've inherited from dynamic, and I've overridden a couple of members here. I've overridden try get member, try set member, and we've still got our dictionary here as a field for our class, but now we're able to expose the keys and values as properties of that object. So if we run this in our debugger, then there's the console there. We get to here, and sure enough, if we look down in our locals, we can see our values. Now, this is a funny thing. I'm in 2015, Visual Studio 2015, and there's no dynamic view here. I'd be interested if anyone in the chat room knows why not. But if I go over 2013, which is this one, and run the same thing, we'll see something that we're not seeing in 2015. Run it up again in 2013. we'll pause there. Oh, sorry, I've got to rebuild the solution because it gets confused. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, we're running. We're going to break there. So we've just set our two properties. If we have a look down here, in 2013, we get our dynamic view. Okay, and we can expand that, and you'll see that it understands that there is an A property and a Fred property. And the way that it knows that is because there's an extra method I've overridden here in my class. I've overridden get dynamic member names, and that is what Visual Studio is using to figure out what are the keys that I can use, or what are the property names, the member names I can use to look at this object. Don't know why that doesn't work in 2015. Maybe they'll fix that for RTM. Okay, so that's our next tip done. Okay, now, I hope you like the bell. I did have a hooter, but it got broken by the kids. Maths, math.round, our next tip. Okay, so I have a program here. I think I'm saying that a lot. I get my catchphrase for tonight. And what I'm going to do is start at 0.1 and go up to 1.0 in 0.1 increments. And I'm going to round each one. Now, this is something else for the chat room to do is, where do you think it's going to do the rounding? I'm going to round up or round down, and I'm going to run this program in a second. So chat room people, all throw in with, when we get to 0.5, do you think it's going to round it up or round it down? I'll give you 5 seconds from now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's run the program and have a look and see what it does. Okay, bring it back on demo screen. And there you go. Well, that's not what I learned in primary school when I did rounding. It's rounded 0.5 down. Well, why is that? I'm glad you asked. It's because that's the default. But it just so happens that the round method can take an extra thing, property. So midpoint rounding, and the default is to even. So it's going to round it to the nearest even number. But we can say away from 0. And if we rerun our program, we will now get 0.5 rounding up to 1. There we go. Keep that in mind if you're ever doing rounding and you forget about that. So that's next one done. Okay, next tip is tasks and task patterns. So you may be familiar with the idea that in .NET, we have for each, and for each doesn't actually care about lists or collections. It actually works on a pattern. As long as an object has a get enumerator method, which returns a couple of things, then for each will be quite happy to work on that. And it turns out the same is true of tasks. So of async and await. So async and await most of the time are working with the task type, but it turns out that async and await are built the same way in that they work off a pattern. So we can use async and await on things that you wouldn't normally expect. So here I've got a time span and the from seconds method, and I'm awaiting that. And you might say, Dave, how can you do that? Because from seconds doesn't return a task. And I'd say, well, that's a good question. Let's find out. So the way we do this is we create a extension method on time span, and the method name is called getAwaiter. And so this is the pattern that it's looking for. And that returns a type. And that type we've defined up here. And this type implements an interface, iNotifyCompletion. Let's have a look at that. All that interface has is an onCompleted method. And so we've implemented that. And you can see inside here, this is where we're going to do a sleep. So this code, we're going to await our time span from seconds, and we're going to wait, sleep for 15 seconds, and then can carry on. That's what our functionality is here. In order to finish making this code work with async await, we've implemented a couple of other methods. These are the ones you just have to implement. They're not part of the interface. So if we run this program, and There's our console. So we started and we're sleeping for 15 seconds, and I wish I'd made it less than 15 seconds because it's going to take so long. And so we're inside that method, waiting, waiting, waiting. Is it going to finish any second now? And there we go. So something to keep in mind, could be handy for your next project. Okay, that's that tip done. Ding, ding. Okay, generics. Right. Here's a class. And for many of these tips, I can't claim them all as my own. I've included references for where I've found the original example from them. All my source code will be up on GitHub. So full disclosure, and don't want to be accused of plagiarizing. So have a look at this type here. It's a generic type. It's of type turtle, where T is of type turtle, which takes type T. It kind of does your head in. So it's kind of a recursive generic class. Seems kind of weird. And here's a class that implements that, if you like, and then we're newing it up. I guess my understanding of what this is kind of clever about of doing is it means that T is going to be the actual outside type, if you like. So even though we're on our base class here, we know that the type T is going to be of our outer class. So that's kind of handy. That may come in handy because you want to return that type and not the base type. And because it's a generic, it's not the same as just doing get type or something like that. So we can run that. And there we go. So we can see that actually, yes, we can figure out that this is a real turtle type because we've just displayed that to the console. Okay. Tip done. Ding, ding. All right. On to number 8, ripping through them. Okay, I have 3 web applications here, Super Web App, Super Web App 2, and Super Web App 3. They all reference this one shared library with the imaginatively named class 1, and they're all making use of this. So it turns out that around the .NET 4 timeframe, Microsoft released a tool to help you out if you're running a lot of web applications on the same server that are all sharing identical assemblies. And so the problem they're trying to solve is that you're going to end up with all these copies of these assemblies all over, installed in separate places because they're separate web applications. And so that may impact on memory and jitting and all that kind of stuff. So let's have a look. First of all, I've got here's my web applications here, and I'll just refresh them just to make sure they're all current. Okay, I'll go to Process Explorer and find my W3P process because it must be here somewhere. There it is. And we'll just have a look down the list and we'll see that, sure enough, there's all these files open. There's a whole bunch in the GAC, not surprising. And there's all my files here. They're all on temporary ASP.NET. So you should see some there for the different applications. There's Super Web App 3, 2, and Super Web App. All the files there. Okay, so you can imagine this is a simple case, but you can imagine that could get scaled out to a whole lot of instances of separate apps, all sharing the same files. So wouldn't it be nice if we could consolidate that, maybe even use some kind of symbolic link or something to move the files around? Well, that's what this tool does. If I copy this command, bring up my command prompt, paste that in. So I'm pointing that to my temporary ASP.NET files folder and telling it to write to this new directory here. Now, just prove there's nothing up my sleeve. Here is my C drive, and that doesn't exist at the moment. So I'll run that. That's going to chug through, find all the identical files and create symbolic links. So just to show that's what's happened, I'm going to grab that, throw it into Notepad so I can figure out what path is. And copy that and come back to Explorer. So this was the original directory where this file was, and you can see now it's actually replaced it with a symbolic link. Where did it push it to? Well, let's find out. And we're now inside that folder that we've just created. So we can see now on my C drive, there's that Common Assemblies folder. So if we go back here, I'm just going to do an IIS reset. Go back to our browser. And that's finished, yep. Reload our web pages. And I'll spin up again. We'll go back to Process Explorer, find our W3P. And what we should see is, and we are, all our references are now to that Common Assemblies folder. Now, the funny thing is, and we're still going to see a few references to the temporary AS files, because there's some files that are unique. Basically, the actual project assembly, they're different for each one. Now, what I would love to show is that there was just one file each, but I can't. That's what not Process Explorer is showing. So I can only assume this works if somebody knows any different, then happy to have them throw in their opinions into the chat room. But anyway, that's a tool I hadn't seen much mentioned about, and so that makes my list of top 10 unusual things. Okay, that's the end of that tip. Let's go back to the Visual Studio. Number 9, with a bullet. Okay, so lots of you who are doing .NET are probably using Link, and you might be using Entity Framework or in Hibernate. So sometimes you might find that you might come up with some particular query in Link, and here I've got one here where I'm finding all the stores where their name starts with an E and ends with an E. And it so happens in this particular application, that's critical business logic that I want to reuse a lot. And so I don't want to have to repeat myself unnecessarily. So wouldn't it be nice if I could create my own custom link method? Well, it would be so nice, and in fact, it is possible. So I have created a where starts and ends with link method so that I can reuse this all over my code. So how do we do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here it is. It's an extension method with that name, and then we're basically calling a where, and we're building up an expression. And so our expression does some validation, and then we go and grab the methods off of the string class, because link to Entity Framework understands these methods and can convert them into SQL. So we grab those methods and turn them into expressions, and then we create another expression which ANDs the two together, because we want one and the other. And then we return that. So let's run that program and confirm, that it works. And if we press F5 and wait for the build to start, and off we go, and we hit the database, and then we go. There's our stores, which all start with an E and end with an E. Fantastic. And if we have a look, I'm even dumping out the SQL, and sure enough, there's our query. And so it has generated a like, 2 likes. And in fact, if we ran the original, we would see it's exactly the same SQL. Now, obviously, you can make these more complicated if you need to, but it's just to show that this is what's possible. Okay, that one's done. One more to go. Number 10, with a bullet, is code-aware libraries. This is a new feature in 2015. So I have a class here. There I go, I've said it again. And you'll see these little squiggles are popping up. There's one there, there's another one there. And so what's wrong? Well, that's interesting. It's saying, oh, I own disposable fields, but it's not disposable. That's interesting. That reminds me of the old FX cop rule. And what's this one? Oh, disposal field should be disposed. Oh, well, that's interesting. That reminds me of an FX cop rule as well. Well, it turns out that Microsoft have released some code analyzers through NuGet that reproduce some of the functionality of the old FX cop rules. And so I've added those into this project. So not only can you analyze a problem, but you can also fix a problem. So I can say, yep, I want to implement iDisposable. But I still got this one. And so I want to fix that one and just wait for it to catch up. There we go. Rosalind doing its thing. And yes, I want to fix that. And there we go. And then wait for it. And any second now, Rosalind will go, yep, all good now. Now, the interesting thing is that you can do this for your own libraries as well. So you can write your own analyzers that ship as part of a library, and then they'll get run when your library is used. And so you can enforce certain rules or hints about how your library should work. So that's really cool. So if you want to know what those libraries were, then I'll just throw them up on the screen here for you. So I'll just do a get package. Project name is, and it was codeware. And I'm going to output that to grid view because that looks pretty. And so there you go. So that's the two package names. There's code analysis, FX cop analyzers. There's also system runtime analyzers. So that's pretty neat. And I think if I'm going to be building any libraries that are going to target 2015, it's probably worth considering creating your own code analyzers. So there you go. 10, all done. So thank you very much. I'll switch back to my slides. So in summary, we saw 10 unusual tips and tricks for .NET. We saw reference aliases, type forwarding, indexes with parameters, index methods with parameters, dynamic hashes, math.round, task patterns, recursive generics, ASP.NET_intern. So that's the tool that I was using for the multiple web applications, link extensions, and code-aware libraries. So thank you very much. My name's David Gardiner. It's been fun being a part of ANZ Coders. Back to you, Richard.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, David. Very good, very good. Hang on, I need to do this. It's very important that I do this once I actually click around to the right spot. Here it comes. What can I say? You shouldn't let me out late at night.
I love it. I love it.
All right, let's see what our wonderful audience has decided to ask you to see if they can bamboozle you and confuse you with science.
Well, that wouldn't be hard.
Okay, so Ryan asks a question from our viewer.
Yes.
If you implement a custom await as such, stop it. If you implement a custom or awaiter such as your time span thread sleep example, then await it, does it run on or off the main thread?
Yeah, that's a good question. Do we want to find out?
Yeah, go on. Go off topic.
Okay.
Let's see what happens.
Right. Okay, let me bring up my screen again. I'm losing all my marbles now. Oh.
Screen sharing would be good too.
Yeah, I just hid the thing behind the other thing. Okay. All right. Share. Okay, so we're back in here. Task patterns. And so we want to know what thread we're on, I guess, don't we? So Does that look reasonable? And
seems good.
Then, yeah, then I'll grab that and poke that down here, and we'll go coding on the fly. Whoops, don't mind that. And that one. Do we want another one down here as well, maybe? Just for fun.
Go on, just stick it everywhere.
Is that enough?
Like
Are we happy with
code.
that? It is. I think that'll do for our demo. All right, let's run it. See what happens. So Ryan, I hope you appreciate this. I don't think this is for everyone. So, okay, we're on thread 10, and then we're sleeping on thread 10, and then, well, don't you wish it was less than 15? That's kind of annoying, isn't it? I was thinking I should have some hold music, and then we're on 10.
Yeah, elevator music at this point.
So that's kind of what I expected, I guess, because my understanding of async await is that in itself doesn't guarantee switching threads. So, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Right. What else we got? Any other questions? I'm just quickly scanning through the chat room. I think we just need to ring the bell a few more times. And you were promising to sing before, so you can do that.
Ring my bell.
There we go.
Well, I could. He sang that song. That was a one-hit wonder, wasn't it? Anyway.
And all the covers.
All right. Well, yeah.
Thank you, David. We are, unless anything else is there, done. Oh, the ta-da. Ta-da! Ta-da. Actually, I'll check for sound effects for you guys again.
Go on, yeah, do it.
Yeah, that's about it. Oh, wait. No, that doesn't work either.
Hang on, I'll just say.
All right. Hey.
I think I've set the bar really low for the next two guys to exceed. So I'm happy to do that.
Daniel says, not perfect, we're blocking thread 10.
Well, yeah, that's because we're sleeping. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are good. Guys, thank you for joining this particular session. We will be back very, very shortly in exactly, if I look at my clock, 13 whole minutes with Sitefinity, which is going to be something unusual for a coding conference. We'll see what happens. And we will see you guys then. Until that, catch you later.
Bye.
Or as I used to say, happy coding.